All right. Here we are. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to FML. Of course, it usually means fuck my life, but here at Project Refit, it means for my life. And there's Ski. We got Ski and myself, and we have a guest with us today. Hey, actually, I'm going to have real quick, Wade, go ahead and say her name real fast for me.
Lai-Dumone.
Fail. Wait. I think you got the last name right. Lai-Dumone. You got that part. You want to try again with the first name?
Lay.
No, the first name.
Van's wrong?
Yeah, it's wrong. But it'll get you every time, right? You're always going to look at that and say Van. It's actually Zanu.
Zanu. That's Chinese?
No.
What
she
is
it? Straight messing with you right now, bro.
Oh, what? I'm thinking about all the kids I went to high school with, and I would like butcher their names because of the spelling. You know, it's different.
Think son.
Yes. So you can. It's interesting because people, I'm like, it's Van like son, and they're still like Vaughn. I'm like, it's not that complicated. Son Van.
Van.
Yes.
Van. Okay.
You got it.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, we're Van today. By the way, Ski, the haircut, it's on point. Looks good, man.
Hey.
What did it look like before today?
It looked like I just crawled out of a cave. It was long.
It was pretty long. Pretty long.
You had the COVID cut.
Yeah, but it was just pure laziness, and I'm a baller on a budget, so I didn't want to spend $35 on a haircut.
Fucking love you so much, dude. Baller on a budget. Let's go. So today we're going to be just jumping right into it. I usually like to do a quick update. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to give an update on Project Refit, kind of the progress that we're making, the conversations that we're having, and then we're going to jump right into you, Van. And we're going to talk about your story, what you do, how you got into helping out veterans in veteran space. And then we're going to throw out there the topic today right after that. And then we'll get into everything. So, all right. So update. We are moving right along. We just had our Project Refit big team meeting. It was Wade, Dan, Chad, myself. We went up to Boston. We hung out with Wade. Wade didn't have his fresh haircut yet. He does now, though. Looking good, buddy. Baller on a budget. Let's go. But Wade and Chad, myself and Dan, man, we had a great conversation. We have some really great plans coming up. A lot of execution. We're super stoked. We approved the purchase of the truck. We know our budget. We know where we're going to be going with that, how we're going to be spending that money. It's looking like we're going to be getting a Chevy, Chevy to the levee. But we're still looking around, seeing if we can get a really good deal. We do have one that was thrown to us, which was pretty awesome, but we're going to see if we can get better before saying yes. Anywhere right now, honestly, anywhere that we possibly can to be able to get a great deal. So
okay, I'm going to make a connection for you on that.
Oh,
okay, cool.
Yeah.
Let's go. That's really the big update that I'd like to give. I mean, we have more meetings coming up this week and such, and of course more things will come. We have the golf outing May 27th. Please check it out. Come out. That's in South Jersey, Wedgwood. And that's it. So Van, let's get right into it.
Yes.
Tell us about yourself. Tell us about how you got into this space, and let's do this thing.
Sure. Okay. So my name is Van Lai-Dumone. My company's called WorkSmart. I work in team and leadership development, all through this lens of creativity, which basically means I bring in play, creativity, basically in everything I do. About a year and a half ago, I told my life story on a TEDx stage. I called it The Life-Changing Power of Curiosity and Courage. And there's a story it's the story that revolves around this framework that I built around how when you follow your curiosity, ask what if, and take small steps, you can create possibilities for yourself and for others. And I wrap it around my family story. We're from Vietnam. I'm a Vietnamese refugee. I came here when I was 2 years old. And, we fled Vietnam the day Saigon fell. My dad was a colonel in the South Vietnamese Air Force. So he worked really closely with the US military. And with the help of the Marines, we were able to get out of the country. And our first home here was actually Camp Pendleton Marine Base in San Diego. And I was so young at the time, but my parents tell us the stories about how not only did they, like these Marines, build a shelter for us within 24 hours for 18,000 refugees, but they fed us, they clothed us, the basics. But then they also spent their time with us, entertaining us, educating the kids. So, I mean, my parents just had this instilled in me this respect for the US military. And there was one story I read where she was a young girl at the time, maybe 13 or 14. She got off the bus at Camp Pendleton, and the first Marine she met there said to her in Vietnamese, welcome to your new home. We hope you feel safe here.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So that's so all my life I've sort of had this kind of in the background, the respect for the military, but I really wasn't doing anything with it, right? I just had respect for the military. I would donate here and there to things for veterans. And it wasn't until I told that story on a TEDx stage that this opportunity started coming out of nowhere. So I am one of the facilitation models I use called Lego Serious Play. Yes, that's a thing. I'm a certified Lego Serious Play facilitator, where we think with our hands and use Legos to build models of ideas, thoughts, feelings. So I was approached by someone and said, hey, I know someone who knows someone who's looking for a Lego Serious Play facilitator in the Southern California area, which is where I live. So long story short, I get connected with the Honor Foundation in San Diego. And they are a transition program for special force operators into civilian career. So what I do now is I go in on the very last night before they graduate, and I bring my work and creativity, all my tools, and we talk about possibilities, and we build possibilities for their future. And I think what's great about that is the fact that, the first thing all these men and women build is something practical, right? I'm going to go work for the Department of Defense. I'm going to go run a security company. By the end of the night, people are building things like, I used to love acting. How about I try something in that? I used to love traveling and writing. Why don't I look at becoming a travel writer? So, and the whole thing for me is this idea that your military service can inform what you do next, but it certainly doesn't limit what you do next.
Definitely. I just got into that conversation today with my professor. He was talking about how essentially just because you study one thing, it doesn't limit you to that. For instance, if you get into marine biology, with that, anybody will hire you because through school you get analytical skills, and that could apply to just about anything. If anything, understanding marine eco life, whatever you want, the ecosystem itself, helps you translate into something smaller, because most of the world is freaking ocean. You know what I mean? So it can apply to really anything.
So true. Yeah. It's so, and I love that what you just said about you can just apply things, right? It's and I feel I work with a lot of people in HR, and what I'm seeing is that the trend is not so much to hire now for, yes, experience, but it doesn't have to be the experience in that role, right? What people really want to hire for is the ability to learn, the ability to do something different, the ability to have resilience, especially, the last year just showed us resilience is maybe more important than anything. The ability to learn new things is more important than anything. So I'm finding that companies are more open to hiring people, not based on you've already done this role, but you can grow into this role. And you've shown that you can do similar things, maybe in a different field, but that you're able to learn new things.
Yeah. So how would you apply that? I'm actually really interested in that Green Beret program that you were doing. That's really awesome.
Yeah.
For anybody listening to this or that does watch this in the future, do you have any advice if they're on the verge of getting out? What would you want them to do? What website should they look at? What links?
So the Honor Foundation is for special force operators, and it's an amazing program. I would highly recommend looking into the Honor Foundation. I am not at the top of my head. I don't know of other transition programs out there, but search out transition programs, because from working with the military, the military men and women in transition, it's just so interesting to me. Like, I mean, the two of you know what you've gone through, right? Through from signing up, through going through training, to deployments, and still, and I hear stories about what that's like, and still there's so many people who transition who say that is the hardest thing they've gone through. So I think it's important to not do it alone, right? So find a transition program, find a group of people that can support you through that transition. And I think the difficulty in that transition is that what I keep hearing is that, first of all, in the military, you're kind of given your purpose, your why, your vision, your values, and your mission. And then the other part of it is the camaraderie, to like go from that to just be like, I'm just out here on my own. So I think it's so important to find, if it's not the Honor Foundation, find a transition program.
Yeah. So I love that, simply because when you say the alone factor, right? That is literally what even Project Refit is trying to do. The thing that we're trying to do is build up community to combat that isolation. But there are programs like that program that you were just mentioning, the Honor Foundation. They probably have additional things that they train you on, right? Like they help you, take you through these different trainings and such. It's not just a community that you can tap into. It actually has like different training programs that you can graduate from, right? Yes. And the thing that I think is really important, and just a reminder for everybody, actually, there are community programs out there that are always going to be there to help you find the Honor Foundation, to find the PTSD Foundation of America, things like that. And that's one of us. Like, that's what we're trying to do as well, is try to help you find places like this. So Vaughn, like that is the piece of advice that we look for on this show, which is great. So if you are a Special Forces operator and you so happen to listen to this, watch this, check them out. Check out the Honor Foundation. And, when you're completed with them, come back to us, hang out with us, come to some of the mobile bases that you're going to have in your area, in your town, and, get connected there too, and find more places that can help you like that. And during transition, it's actually something that's brought up a lot. There's a ACAP. It's a program when you're leaving, 5-day program. We're trying to get ourselves integrated into that program as well. That's the goal for Dan. Dan wants to make that happen. That's his like mission. He's like, I want to see us in ACAP. And the reason why is because I wish I could, Wade. It doesn't let me change anything for the green screen, sadly.
Okay.
I know. So this is actually for like all the Zoom calls and stuff like that. It doesn't work, or I haven't figured it out yet. If I do, I will. But yeah, so getting into ACAP would be a great place for us, because then we can show people, hey, there's a community, almost like a VFW, American Legion on Wheels, but also, we can distribute out and get you to the different programs that you can find, like, again, the Honor Foundation. Right. So with the Honor Foundation, you mentioned something to me, and I think it's really the topic for today, curiosity, correct?
Right. Yes.
Ooh. Awesome. So, take us down that rabbit hole real fast. And you got two guys in here with you already that love to give ideas based off of words. And then we'll open it up to the rest of the community for them to actually join into the conversation too, if they have any ideas on what they think curiosity means to them. So go ahead, take us through curiosity.
Okay. So I think this framework of following your curiosity, asking what if, and taking small steps, I developed that, but there's a story behind that. I tell it in my TEDx talk. So when after we left Camp Pendleton, we were sent to another refugee integration center up in Northern California, where my mom and 20 Vietnamese women met this Hollywood movie star. Her name was Tippi Hedren. She was famously known for Alfred Hitchcock's movie The Birds, and she's Melanie Griffith's mom, Dakota Johnson's grandmother for the younger generations, and she started this program to help these women create a career for themselves in this new country. It was typing and sewing, but there was something else that caught the curiosity of those 20 women, and it was Tippi's red nail polish, right? Her long red manicured nails. So that curiosity, Tippi could have just been like, well, that's great. Thank you for enjoying my nails. Just keep typing and sewing. But she paid attention to that curiosity, and she asked, what if? Right? What if we can get these women licensed as manicurists? So long story short, if you've been to a nail salon over the last 47 years, they're mostly run by Vietnamese men and women. And it comes from that story. So Tippi decided to invite her manicurists up to teach them how to do a basic manicure. And then she went to local beauty school and said, despite the fact that they don't have money to pay you, despite the fact that they don't speak English, can you take them on as students? The school said yes. And, 47 years later, this is an $8.3 billion industry. So to me, like that was like a very early example for me of what following your curiosity can do for you. So my whole idea, my whole concept I'd like to share is when you follow your curiosity, you create opportunities for yourself and for others, seen and unforeseeable.
I agree with that 100%. I actually, I resonate with that in a really deep way, actually. Simply, my curiosity, I was back in Colombia and I was, studying, Wade's heard this before and maybe some other people have too, but you haven't. So I'll tell you that like the thing that I really studied and the piece of data that made me super curious, because I am a creator, I am an artist for sure. I love to design, I love to take photographs and all that kind of stuff, but I also love to look at data and come up with new ideas based off of that. So, I looked at some of the problems that I was seeing in communities locally, and in terms of relationships with police and law enforcement in particular. It's a very hot topic issue these days, but it is one 5 years ago, 6 years ago, was actually just in the beginning stages of getting really bad again. Right, because in 2001 we saw the resurgence of like love for servicemen and women, and the military and law enforcement and firefighters, first responders overall, and because we recognize the importance of, hey, the world still is very violent and the world is still looking out to harm others, and but back to begin time, right? So you would notice that there would be bad things that could pop up and crop up. So I took that curiosity and I said, I think in a few years there's going to be riots. Actually, late 2019, early 2020. Ended up being right, but I ended up being early with what I was trying to do. But it did lead me. My curiosity led me to this. So it led me to helping change and save lives. And I'm forever grateful for that. So I know that curiosity, when you begin to follow it and follow that journey of curiosity, is a powerful, powerful one. And it can create really amazing things in your life and change your life in ways that you never imagined.
Right. So, and look at what you're creating, right? It's like, that's the whole idea. Like, it's not just for your life, but look at the lives you're directly impacting. But then not only that, but think about the ripple effect of that, right? The one life you change, how many lives is that going to impact?
Yeah.
I think I love what you're doing.
Yeah, that's why I loved it when you said you wanted to talk about curiosity today. I was like, oh man, I love that. So actually, I want to hear from Wade. Wade, have you ever had an instance of that? And also from the audience, if anybody wants to chime in of a story of how curiosity led you to something really cool, please share it with us. Just comment it in there. We'll read it out loud, maybe even share it. But Wade, go ahead, man. What are your thoughts on this curiosity topic?
I think curiosity is destructively beautiful in the sense that it's a double-edged sword. You can get too curious and it can be toxic, or you can be the right kind of curious and it can be very beneficial. I think we're talking about the beautiful side of curiosity here, which is the beneficial side. Something good that's happened to me out of curiosity. I started writing. I got into school. I managed a bar. I mean, those were all just because I wondered if I was capable of that. And I can't tell you how many times I had anxiety or I had fear of failing at stuff that I never knew about or wouldn't do. Like touching on which I thought was actually really cool. Historically, I don't think a lot of Americans know why Vietnamese people are primarily who do manicures, pedicures. But I thought that was actually freaking amazing. Like if I had
that is amazing.
I would put that on my shop so that people knew and understood, Right. But even going into that, like these people were curious. Now they have like you said, an $8-point-something billion industry.
Yeah.
That's, excuse my language, but that is fucking beautiful.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Through tragedy, through pain, there is growth if you want it to be.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And the resilience and just the, and it's interesting. That's like for a lot of those people, right? It's like their curiosity led them to these like when I talk about my mom, like, you know, she had to be curious and she had to follow her curiosity. And I look at that in contrast to myself. Like, I'm so fortunate I get to, right? And that's another conversation we can have too, this idea of taking what the things are on your plate today, and instead of being like, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that, really being grateful is like, I get to, and what impact does this do I get to make by doing this?
Yeah, I don't know. Curiosity is wonderful to me, because even if you get on that toxic side of curiosity, if you learn from whatever experience you get, then curiosity is still beautiful. You know, we learn from our mistakes. You're curious about a hot stove and you touch it. Guess what you learned?
Right.
Don't touch the hot stove.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. There's a book called Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, and it's around creativity, and she talks about ideas, and I love this. I love the imagery of this and the idea of this. And, you know, so she says that ideas are living things that can only be made manifest by a human, right? Ideas are just like floating around. They can only be manifest by a human. And I think ideas come to us as curiosities. So, right. So if an idea is tapping on your shoulder for a while, that if you don't pay attention to that, what she says, like, the ideas can go find someone else to manifest itself. So really, I think it's important to pay attention to our curiosities, because I think they are intuitive, and if it's and then not to let that whole idea of it be a fearful thing, right? Not to let it be like, oh my gosh, like, I'm curious, but I'm anxious, I'm nervous. Like, how am I ever going to make that happen? You don't have to know how it's going to turn out. You just take one small step. Take one small step towards your curiosity, and let the next small step appear for you.
What would you say? What would you say to those who aren't as outgoing as some of us, that are curious but scared of their own, scared of failing, of their own anxieties?
So two things. Number one is the idea of taking one small step. There's a book that I recommend to everyone. It's called One Small Step Can Change Your Life, the Kaizen Way, by Dr. Robert Maurer. And he talks about, and when you read the book, it just makes sense, right? He talks about the fact that we're all born to not do great. I shouldn't say that. We're all born with our brains are wired to not allow us to take these big leaps, to take these big risks. So we have in our brains there's a part called the amygdala, which is wired for fight or flight. So when you talk yourself into like, I'm going, you know, like what you guys are doing, I'm going to create this whole organization and buy trucks and refit these. I don't know what those things are called. What are they called, James?
Mobile bases. And what is the name of the book again?
Kaizen Muse, One Small Step Can Change Your Life. Kaizen. So
keep going. I'm sorry. Yeah, we're creating mobile bases. Get excited again. I want to feel it.
Yeah. Like those mobile bases. Like, if I can imagine, like, if you're like, I want 1,000 of those, how you might be like, okay, your brain is wired to be like, no, you're not. That's impossible. So the idea of taking small steps allows us to bypass the amygdala, not wake it up, so that we can reach our goals faster by taking one small step at a time. So there's a neurological reason why small steps help us reach our goals faster than taking these big giant leaps. That's how I started my business. When I first started my business, like, I want my business to look like this and be like this and be this big. And guess what I would do? I would sit in front of the TV, watch Netflix with a pint of ice cream. But when I decided, like, I'm just going to take the first small step forward, I created a business within 3 months.
I love that.
Amazing.
Cream, though.
I literally love that so much. You're actually making me think even about something that I'm working on too, and constantly thinking about honestly that problem that I just mentioned, like police and law enforcement interactions with citizens. And like, I went all in. I was like, I know this big idea and this big vision. I'm going to go for it. And I've already taken a step back, but I think taking those small steps is really important to achieve the bigger goal and the bigger mission and vision. Right. I believe that that's kind of like the most important thing, because even with Project Refit, we did take small steps. I feel like we did everything right so far in Project Refit. Like, we just step after step after step after step. We started fundraising slowly, started raising some money slowly, feeling out the market. And then we saw some of our messages were genuinely reaching millions of people, literally millions of people.
Yeah.
And we were like, whoa, we have something here. This is huge, right? So we started pushing harder. We started raising more money. We executed and we got to things. So I think you're right that when it comes down to starting something, anything, taking a one little step every day is huge. You're not wrong. I mean, like you hear that constantly, but how does that tie into curiosity?
So when I talk like, you know, because people, when like the idea of like following your curiosity, right? And then when you get curious about something, it can lead to like these, like you're saying, Wade, like the spiral of like, oh, but then this and then that and then the other. So that's why I feel like, you know, just take that curiosity and ask that question, what if? Like, what if I could build this whole organization? What if I could help hundreds of veterans in all different cities all over America, right? So taking all those what ifs and with your curiosity, but then narrow it down to one small step. Let's get that first mobile place. Let's get that first truck. And I think I love what you're doing too, because I love the passion too. It's like, because you just jump right in. I think that's another thing, is the idea of like jumping right in and not having to have it perfect. Like just iterating. Like you said, you send out a bunch of messages and you saw which ones worked.
Yeah, for me, this is just my own thing. I could probably speak for whoever's watching this. My biggest thing is my anxieties. They kill me. And just like, I want to dedicate myself to something, but what if I take that small step and, you know, the consequence for it is negative and not positive? And for me, I think a lot of people could probably relate, but I almost trick myself into not being curious. I'm like, no, that's not for me. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So almost like an anxiety or a fear of failure.
Exactly. And I don't know how to, I do it often. Like actually before this, I really hated even talking online or to people, because I had felt, you could even ask James, I felt pretty inadequate for a while talking to people that I feel were smarter than me. But then I learned, if you're the smartest man in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Right.
So
I love that. Well, okay. So let me use that example, right? Like, it's a mindset. You shifted your mindset to do this, right? So you went from like, what if I'm inadequate? What if I'm not the smartest person in the room? To actually, it's a good thing that I'm not the smartest person in the room. So I think all of it is around this idea of shifting your mindset. I have I use this tool often in my workshops around this idea of, it's like limiting beliefs, imposter syndrome, whatever it is. And it's a simple, like, it's a practical tool you can use. And I'll share it with you right now. So basically, whatever that is, that limiting belief you have is, you know, think about a piece of paper with 3 columns. On the far left column, you're going to write down what your limiting belief is, whatever that might be. Like, I don't know enough, right? And then the second column, you can use your curiosity and turn that limiting belief into a possibility. So I don't know enough can be turned into I can learn more, right? So shifting that just so that I can learn more. And then giving your third column is the evidence. Your third column is the evidence, like, how do I know that possibility is indeed possible? Well, I learned to walk. I learned to talk. I went to school. I learned to read. You know, you can go through a whole list of things that are evidence for how things are possible. So you've already done it with that mindset shift to be on here and speaking live, right? So you can do the same mind shift for this fear of failure. And then the other thing I heard recently was this idea that you want more no's. You know, the more no's you get, you're getting closer to your yeses, right? It's like, if you look at it as like I mean, and I'm not good at math, by the way, but you look at it as like an equation. If you want 35 yeses, right, you're going to hear more no's to get those 35 yeses.
350 no's.
Yeah. And those no's come with lessons, right? Okay, so why was it a no? And that's the other thing, to get curious about that. Go back, like, why was that a no for you? I'd love to improve what I'm doing here. We really want to help all these veterans. So why didn't you give us money? Right? Like, right. What was about our pitch?
I actually ask that now. That's another important thing. That's a great. So for sales, right? Let's just talk about it. Let's just jump into it and name it as it is. It's a sale thing, right? Everything in life is a sale. So like, I really believe that, you know, if you end up following up with people and you become courageous enough to be like, hey, I know you said no. Could you just do me a favor and tell me why? Like, just not like an aggressive. I'm not trying to like say you're wrong or anything like that. I'm just trying to say, how can I improve? Right. So why did you say no? How can I improve the pitch? How can I find a better fit? You know, how can we make this work in the future? Right. Things like that. And then people, well, most of the time they will be like, yeah, sure. This is actually it. This is the reason why. This is, you got to do this. You got to do that. I actually had this is a great example. So I was trying to get us interviewed by this big program. So it's a TV program, and the guy was like, "It's a no right now. You guys can't jump on." I was like, "What? Why is that? You know, what's the goal that we have to achieve?" And then it was, well, once you get your mobile base and you have a story and a couple of success stories or like interviews that you guys do out of the mobile base, then I want to cover it. It's like, okay, got it. Now I know what I got to achieve, and I'll revisit with you, and I will accomplish that goal, and I'll make that happen. I think that's what is really important, to have that follow up. I think that's really great.
Yeah, I guess Wade didn't like what you had to say.
No, he probably just jumped. He probably just something happened or whatever. Probably his internet. But yeah, like I think that's critical, right? Having those follow ups to that curiosity. So he said, I got to find a charger. His computer just died. So, but anyway, I would like to hear a little bit more about maybe some stories that you have from your past where you had like a no, or your curiosity led you to somewhere where you were like, no, I can't do that. So what are some stories that you can maybe teach us, or that you taught a veteran or something, or a first responder?
Sure. So just like my personal story is like, I grew up in a household where I told you I was raised by Vietnamese refugees my dad was a colonel in the South Vietnamese Air Force. So it was a strict upbringing, right? And there wasn't a lot of follow your curiosity, ask what if, follow your dreams. It was do things this way, my way, right? My dad's way, and get education, find a job, have fun when you retire. And I went down that path. I got my, I went to UC Santa Barbara, then I got my MBA at Pepperdine. I went down worked in the corporate environment. And for me, the theme of your show is for my life. When I found that for myself was when I started this business, because I've always been creative my whole life. I've always known I was creative, and I never followed that. I just followed the path to make someone else happy, right? To follow someone else's expectation of me. And finally, I just decided, and I will tell you that the point for me was when my son was born. And I looked at the little kid and was like, I want him to know that anything's possible, that he can do what he wants to do in his life and not have to follow this formulaic formula of success. So that's when I chose for my life and left my corporate job and started this business. And it was all out of curiosity. My business today looks so different than what I thought it was going to look like in the beginning, because I just allowed it to iterate. I allowed people to give their feedback. I allowed my clients to tell me what they needed, not so much like what I wanted to put out there, but what they needed. And I always feel like it's like a collaboration of curiosities. My curiosities, clients' curiosities, friends' curiosities, to kind of get my business to where it's today. So yeah.
There is a story that's laying inside of something that you said, and I really want to dive into it. You had to fight for yourself. That's what I just heard you say. So there was a point in time in your life where you had to sit back and you were like, you know what? Do I really like what I'm doing? Am I really achieving what I want? And we actually talked about it pre-show a little bit, of the importance of following who you are, not being stuck to a narrative that you were taught. What was the fight that you had to get through, that you struggled with, and that you found a way to overcome it? What was it? How did you overcome it? And how did you really find who you are?
So for me, it really is, and it's different for everyone. For me, it was about people pleasing, right? People pleasing and wanting to look good, right? Like really looking. And I think that's just how I was raised. Like, let's make everything look good from the outside. And I think it's probably an issue a lot of people face. So, I can't tell you exactly like what it was. It just became exhausting, right? It was just exhausting to not. I do a whole workshop around this. Like, when we are operating from our natural character strengths, and mine happen to be, if there's a and if we can put this in the chat maybe too, there's a online survey you can take called the VIA Character Strengths Assessment. It's a free survey, but what it will give you is your natural character strengths. And mine so happened to be curiosity and creativity. And when I realized like all these years, I was not operating from those character strengths, and it was draining. Now that I do operate from those character strengths, I enjoy getting up in the morning. I enjoy talking to clients, whether it's a yes or a no. I just enjoy doing what I do because I insert my character strengths into everything I do every day. I don't know if that answers your question, but for me, it wasn't like it wasn't so much a moment. It was kind of brewing, right? Like I always knew everywhere I was, there was always like, this isn't where I should be. That's why I hopped around a lot in my career, because like, this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. This isn't where I'm supposed to be going. But every time I would hop into something that I felt, oh, this will look good. I even got my MBA because I thought it would look good. I mean, I specifically remember because I live in Los Angeles, and I went to school at Pepperdine, so right up PCH. And I used to be a surfer, and I remember I was like in a suit going to my first day of a pantsuit going to my first day of my MBA program, driving past all these surfers, going like, what a sellout! What am I doing? But I did anyway because I knew it would impress people.
So, what were the anxieties that you were feeling specifically around the people pleasing, and how did you begin your search to find who you are?
Oh my gosh, I think that's
it's deep, get there. Dig in there.
It's not like it's so deep. I think it was just like a lot of, I just kind of went around a lot of different places, right? I did meditation, I went to retreats, yoga, all sorts of things to sort of try to, and again, like I'm not one to plan out things. I'm probably like you, James, was like, I have an idea, let's jump at that idea. That's sort of how I operate. And so I would say that I've always had this like, something's not right. I want my life to be a little different. So I would just, if someone would come up with an idea like, oh, why don't you go to this yoga retreat? I would go and glean something from that. Oh, Kundalini yoga, let me go get a Kundalini yoga teacher and glean what I can from that. So it was almost for me this slow progress where it seemed like me quitting my job suddenly and starting my business seemed so sudden, but it really was like years of, I guess, what people call seeking and searching.
I feel like it was an evolution to who you are today. It's all just part of your numbers, mathematical equation that equals you right now.
I think, and I love that you said that way, because what I really recognize now today is that all those places I thought I didn't belong led me to where I am today. Right, all those times I was like, what am I doing here? Why do I have the sales position? Why am I doing X, Y, and Z? I realized, like if I was an artist, if I just all I had done in my life was be an artist and try to do and make the impact I'm making today, people wouldn't have taken me seriously, right? So having all those different careers, all those different building blocks, like you were talking about, really, really did serve a purpose. So I feel like that's a good message to share here too. Is like all the things you've gone through, you've gained something from each place, and you can bring that to what you do next.
Yeah, I agree. I think even talking about it on the other side of the coin, without beautiful experiences, even the bad experiences led me to where I am. And I feel like I'm not an advisor by any means, but they helped me talk to my peers in a way that I could relate. It's hard to talk to somebody, tell you about wine if they've never tasted wine. So
right.
I have. So people, I'm not going to say they listen to me more or less, but I can at least be like, hey, I've been there. And that comes from past experiences and trauma. And then it also comes with great experiences because, look, we're having this conversation. So it all led to something great,
Yeah, absolutely.
James, you're muted, bro. I think he's a mime right now.
We lost your volume.
That's all right. He's got a sweet beard.
Well, there's a couple things I jotted down that I thought was like that I heard. I just want to share because I think I just like sharing things I hear that bring value to my life. And one of them was, so the Honor Foundation for Veterans Day, they had something called a toast to veterans that had speakers come and speak to the fellows of the Honor Foundation. And there was one Lieutenant General, retired U.S. Army, Mike Nagata, and he said something that really struck me, especially with my work with veterans. He said, "You've done your service, now do something that brings you joy." Right? And I think that leads to curiosity too, because if you've been in the military for all these years, like you may not even know what brings you joy anymore. You may not even know, you may not even be tapped into that anymore. So the idea of being curious, like what does bring you joy, and operating from that point, because I think that's such a powerful message. You've done your service, find something that brings you joy.
Yeah, what's greater, service or joy?
Well, okay, it could be both, right? That kind of leads me to like the second thing that I was talking, that I found that kind of leads back into that, this idea of freedom, right? It's like most people think freedom is like I get to do whatever I want, whenever I want. But my friend Amy shared a post over Passover, and she had said that the Jewish definition of freedom is not doing whatever you want, but having the ability to create a meaningful life with authentic values and constant growth, striving to live up to our potential. I'm like, that is an amazing definition of freedom, right? Did you get
that? Is beautiful.
Yeah. So I thought that was just like a great definition of freedom, and yeah, like what does that whole idea, like what's more important or more powerful, freedom, service or joy? Maybe I think for a lot of servicemen and women, service is what brings you joy.
I think that you guys can hear me again, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that something that comes into that service mindset is key, right? Actually, so Wade, you and I were talking a little bit about this, where it was over the weekend. Actually, we're talking about how a lot of veterans, especially combat guys, they go to war and they don't actually expect themselves to come back, and they plan out all their life up to a certain point, right? And
Yep.
I think that they lose that sense of curiosity when they're doing that, especially when they, as Wade, you put it, I cheated my contract, right? Like you were expected, you thought you'd be dead by 26, right? That's what the timeline, and the glorious death, and something where you died in combat and you'd be remembered on Memorial Day instead of Veterans Day. I find that to be incredibly powerful. And I think that's also something that why this conversation fits in perfectly is because, we need to find the why, find your, not just the why, but like the thing that you want to do for the world. Because when you're a service-minded individual, you have to do service. You must. Because if you don't, you're not going to be able to find that fulfillment. That's very service oriented. I never served in the military, but I am a very service oriented individual, which is why everything that I do is centered around helping others and trying to figure out a way to innovate, to bring a new look at helping. Right. So we definitely need better. As Joe actually said here, that we need better 100%. I agree with that. We do need better. We need better ways to look at life and look journey, right? I think that's huge and really important. So when it comes down to finding mission, Vaughn, what is it in your mission that you find most value?
So my work is in serving others, in the sense that I help people tap into their curiosity and their creativity to create those possibilities for themselves and others. I would say that my mission really is around creativity. That's really like the work I do, is bring creativity into the workplace, creativity back into people's lives, because we're all born creative. And I talk about creativity as a capacity and not a skill, right? Oil painting is a skill, opera singing is a skill, but the creativity behind that is a capacity that we all have. And when we tap into that creativity and our curiosity, that's where possibility exists. And when I think about my mom's story, like creativity, we came from Vietnam with absolutely nothing, right? They were able to pack 2 suitcases, which got thrown overboard. So we came in with nothing. And I talk about this in the TEDx talks, like the only thing those women had were their resilience and their curiosity. And look what they were able to create. So so my mission is around like getting people to really understand that we don't, there's not much else we need, but if you can follow that curiosity and you can get creative and think creatively, the world's wide open to you.
I agree. I definitely, this is not as glorious as the things you're saying, but you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yes. Right. Yeah. And I'll tell you, like when I think James, you asked a little bit a while ago, like where did this like framework of curiosity help me out? And I think it's hard for people sometimes to give themselves credit, because my TEDx talk I keep talking about, I used to tell people like, oh, that was luck. Yeah. How'd you get on a TEDx stage? Oh, that was luck. But really, when I look at it, I'm like, nope, that was me following that path, because what happened was I knew I wanted to talk at a TEDx stage. I knew I wanted to share this framework of my mom's story. And I was on LinkedIn one day and I saw that this woman I had met about 4 years ago was hosting a TEDx talk. It was called TEDx Women Mission of Mavericks. And I clicked on it and she was selling tickets. She had all her speakers lined up. She was selling tickets. So I bought a ticket, closed my computer, walked away. But then, my curiosity tapped me on the shoulder. Like, but didn't you just say you wanted to talk on that TEDx stage? So I opened my computer back up and I just got curious. I said, what if they have one more spot on that stage? So I emailed her. I'm like, here's my story. I saw that you're hosting a TEDx talk. I want to tell my story on your stage. And 2 days later, she followed up and said, we'd love to hear your story. So just like you're saying, Wade, like, it's you have to make your own luck, right? You have to put yourself out there and be willing. I mean, she could have easily said no, and I had to be okay with that. So be willing to put yourself out there, make your own luck, create things for yourself by following that curiosity. And what do you say? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yep, Wayne Gretzky or Michael Jordan, depending on whoever you want to say said it first.
I just say Plato said everything.
Hey, Dan, I would love to hear your perspective on curiosity and the importance of it, right? So, for instance, we were just describing. You got it? Do you have it?
Oh, yeah, that's the easiest question. I think that's what got me as far as I am in therapy, in all honesty, and wanting to understand why I started thinking the way I started thinking, and what caused it, how to fix it. Is all of it bad? Is it permanent? I think that's why I'm going into psychology, is the curiosity of the brain. I want to know why. I want to know why and how to fix it. And I think that's detrimental in actually healing. I think being curious in your own pain, what caused it, how to fix it, the time spent in it. I think that opens the same way our radio checks, how I keep saying, when I'm in a place and I'm just constantly talking to myself, I believe my thoughts over and over and over. But when I voice them to myself, somebody or whatever, or out like vocally, it's tangible now. I think of it in a different perspective than I did when it was in my head. And I think that's solely because of the curiosity. So I think curiosity is, along with just being very open with yourself, but I think curiosity comes a little bit stronger after being open with yourself. But when you're curious about your own pain, I think it opens doors that necessarily wouldn't have been opened if you were not open-minded and curious.
I love that. Connecting it directly back to mental health. I think that's critical, actually. I mean, if you become curious in your pain, you don't want to live in that pain. Once you recognize that you don't have to be the way that you are, I think that's when you begin a really cool journey to really healing yourself. Actually, so Vaughn, I'm going to be real with you real quick. All right.
Yeah.
That's why I asked you. So Dan, thank you for that. That was freaking beautiful. That's why I asked the question of if it gets deep, let us know, because your curiosity came from a pain. There's definitely a pain you wanted to get away from, and getting over it and getting through it. You mentioned how you went to yoga. You began to really look into who you are and like deciding that I can change. I don't have to please other people. Yeah. I can actually just please who I am, please my own curiosities, my own brain, and command my own life. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So when you say that, it brings to, I mean, when you say that, like I never even looked at it that way. Like, what pain was that? I think it was the pain of being a refugee, being an outsider. I grew up in Santa Monica. I was like one of 5 Asians in my whole school. The 2 others were my brother and sister. And always trying to fit in, right? From a little girl, like I remember wanting to be blonde and blonde hair and blue eyed. And then just kind of going on in life like that sticks with you, right? So always trying to fit in, always trying to be accepted. And finally I was like, enough of being accepted. And by the way, the idea of this is something like I've been working on recently, is like the idea of fitting in is very different than the feeling of belonging. Right. So to belong, if I'm going to, I belong here, right? I can just be myself. I can say whatever I want. This is belonging. Fitting in is me trying to be who you want me to be, to fit in with your group. So for me, I think it was really about letting go of that need for fitting in and being accepted, and just be like, this is who I am. Here's how I'm going to show up. Take it or leave it.
Do you lose your curiosity by trying to fit in? Do you think? Do you lose curiosity by trying to?
Yeah, because you're curious about the wrong things. Like, oh, how can you're curious about how can I look more like that person? Or how can there's still an element of curiosity, but it's not your own anymore, right?
But you're putting the blinders on to what I think like real curiosity is. Like you said, you're acclimating to who and what they want you to be. So you're not curious. You're at that point you're being controlled if you really want to go that far. I think I don't think there's really there's not much positive curiosity that could come from that until you break from that mentality, and that bit of curiosity, dope.
Yeah.
That was actually life-changing for me, I think, right now. I didn't really think that deep into it, It's like if you're conforming, I feel like you're giving a piece of yourself up, and I feel like I probably struggle with that sometimes.
Too much of yourself, I think. I think if you conform, you're giving people too much of you to control. Mm-hmm. Where now, like you give people yourself, but you have full control over how much self you give.
Right, absolutely. And thanks, James, for bringing it back to that, because I would have never come to that myself. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, that's how I guess you learn to be for your life, right? Yeah. Like that's why it's such a powerful, the FML idea of being for your life is really trying to find out, when was it that I wanted to be for me? When was it that I sat back and I was like, damn, this needs to be me, right? Like for me, I'll tell you right now, when I recognize for being for my life, it's actually after I started reading a lot of books and watching documentaries and some great entrepreneurs and guys that are changing the world, right? And by guys, I mean men and women, right? So both who are changing the world and studying them. What did they do? How does an athlete who performs at a top level, how do they get to where they are, right? How do these people do that? And you know what it is? And you've been alluding to it the whole time, Von, is vision, right? Envisioning yourself in that place, on that TEDx, that end point, idea of, I really want to be a guy in a trailer traveling the country, interviewing people like yourself in person on this thing. Awesome. I have that in my head. I'm like, I said to Dan the other day, he's playing awesome tunes on our way back or up and back from Boston. I'm like, bro, you got to be the DJ. We got to have a Spotify list that people can
listen to while we're there.
Like, those are things that we see that we can come up with and achieve in person, right? Those are very important to grit and to perseverance and to get through, to find your end goal, or at least a part of your journey. It's not even an end goal. It's just that part of your journey that can then have another thing that you want to achieve. So with that, what is your big vision that you have for yourself that you
so that has changed. Like this past year has been so interesting. So, and I really had to think about that, because I've always been such an achiever, right? Like, let's make this business as big as possible. But honestly, like, I'm a mom of an 8-year-old. I'm in my late 40s. Like, I'm not looking to take over the world. Like, I want to continue to do the work I'm doing. I want to grow it to about, maybe 10 facilitators who work with me to bring this work out into the world. And it's so interesting because sometimes like you can have those visions of what it is, what you want your future to be. But in the past year and a half, starting to work with veterans, there's so many doors opening for me now to work with other veteran groups, with the military. And I really see, and I would have never seen it for myself other than other people visioning it for me, bringing my creativity, my Legos, my Play-Doh, this idea of building possibilities and creative problem solving into the military. Like, yeah, and then also, but then the other end of it, like I say, like I don't want this to be, you know, I want to have this work-life balance, and my latest vision for myself is doing this, working off of a farm with 3 goats, tons of dogs, and a couple miniature horses.
I love that. That's actually a personal vision for me. Is I would love to have one day. So I'm obsessed with black, like the color, as you can tell.
Oh, yeah.
Like I really want to have a house that is like that black interior that is also a farmstead, like one of those like
I can see it.
barns. Yeah. And then have like the different horses on it and dogs. I don't know about goats though. I've been learning a lot about goats being around vets. So goats or not, but wait, there's that face. But
you better want goats.
What's that?
I said you better want goats.
I want goats? I thought they were gross.
Yes, you
Whatever
want.
you guys say, it's gross.
You want those pygmy fainting goats? Everybody wants them.
Create some funny videos with them.
Yeah.
But yes,
animals are a lot of work. Joseph says.
I have for myself.
Yeah. The other thing when you're talking about vision that I think is a good way to look at vision too is this idea of acting as if it already is so. Right? So to get to where you want to be, you almost have to act as if you're already there, because sometimes our mindset where we are now isn't going to get us there. So kind of get into that mindset of, I already have, right? I'm already driving across country in this thing. I already have my playlist. Right? Or for me, it's like, okay, like I'm lining things up. Like I already have my goats picked out, or the place I'm going to get my goats from picked out.
I think that's where I am, right?
Yeah, absolutely, Wade.
So I think this is a perfect time to kind of bring it into something. We say this quote all the time at the end of the show because we think it's such a powerful thing. It's beginning to catch a lot of people's attention, and it's actually not our own quote. It is a quote from a metal band, and it is, "Hate is a cancer, love is the answer." And I think that if you really think about what you're talking about, this curiosity thing, you have to love yourself, right? You have to love yourself, love who you are, to be able to find that curiosity and to be able to follow through with that curiosity, take those small steps into achieving your lifelong goal and to achieve really cool visions that we all set for ourselves. Hate is a cancer, love is the answer. And I think that's a really good a segue to kind of end this thing out. But do you have any final thoughts or anything like that, Vaughn?
Well, in that same line, I think there's we know the state of the world right now. I think that in conversations, that's how we solve a lot of problems, right? That's where we go from hate to love. Dialogue. is through conversation.
I love that. I think that's super important. That's another reason why we actually started the show. Wade said he wanted to really have this be a plan and bring people in who might believe things or say things that, you know, might hurt people's feelings or think a different way. But the only way we can actually achieve growth is by allowing there to be an open forum, an open conversation, and just have it with love, you know? So hate is a cancer, love is the answer. This is FML. So that is instead of fuck my life, it is for my life. And we are all here for our lives. So thank you so much for joining us today, and look forward to talking to you guys again next week. Vaughn, we'll probably have you on again because you are awesome and your journey is incredible. So look forward to that.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
No problem. All right. See you, everybody.